It is another episode of the Best Damn League show. And obviously, I'm not going to start with a joke about Dom not being here, because he is here again. He has graced us for the end of the season in LEC, which obviously you are now, bizarrely, the #1 LEC hater, apparently, and you just want the whole region, I don't know, shut down, furloughed, turn into a minor region, remove the whole format. Anything else? Anything else I need to do?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I just dedicated my last 5 years to consistently doing LEC content, doing shows like this, like platforming players. The whole SAC was just made up of LEC players, but I just hate the region, and none of my criticisms are valid. If I'm saying something negative, it's because I have some ulterior motive. That must be the case. It couldn't just be that the LEC is actually declining in a lot of areas that are tangible. Look, if you look at the LEC, the hype video for grand finals in Munich, this was absolutely mental to me. In 3 days, how many views do you think this video got? The hype trailer.
God. Is it going to be something mad, like 5K or something? Is it going to be something really bad? Come on, hit me.
16K.
Oh, that's terrible. That's actually insane. Especially because their channel must be enormous, right? How many subs does it have? 1 million
400,000 subscribers.
400K is pretty good. Yeah.
400,000 subscribers.
And remember, that's all in one game there, guys. Like, that's only League people. So in theory, you should all be incentivized to click it. Yeah, it's wild. That's
actually,
wild.
I'm going to check it right now. At this point, so this is 6 days later, it's 17K. So like
that's mental.
I mean, I don't know.
By the way, guys, if you don't get it, that should be like an easy 100K if you do that well. Like an easy 100K.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's just there like so for example, the kickoff tease for spring. Think about spring. That's like in between winter. Spring should be the least interesting kickoff split, because winter, it's the beginning of the year. Summer is, that's after the break. That's when everyone's coming back. Like that is another split that's super important going to Worlds. The spring one had 45,000 views.
Fucking hell.
So like the fact
and remember, dude, think how crazy this is. They've said this is the highest viewed LEC ever, but no one's even watching the hype materials. That is wild. By the way, it's actually why, even though you didn't do it intentionally, the fact that this was the region you sort of low-key dropped a little bit, like we don't do this show all the time. Mate, it's actually worked out. You've dodged a bullet on that one. I think you would have actually just been mad tilted if you had to do this every week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just, I think the hardest thing for me is that like I have just higher expectations for a lot of the teams. So when I'm watching teams like G2, this is the team that I'm expecting to do well, right? Like I want this team to perform. I wish I could just wipe the last 3 months of G2 information out of my mind, and we can just go straight from like MSI to Worlds and be like, this team is fucking great. Yes. Look at what they did. Top 4, beat the second LPLC. This team is going to do something great. Like that's what I want to feel going into Worlds. And then I just like watched all this and it's like, I mean, I guess they won 2 more championships. Like, I guess 7 championships now. He's the most winning jungle in the history of LEC. So, it is what it is. I guess they still did it. I just want to like look at the results. Okay, they won both times. Forget everything else and go to Worlds, and hopefully they, put up a good performance.
No, I agree. By the way, there's on the hot take show that I've got coming out, the second episode's coming out soon. I actually have a really spicy take about G2. Essentially, I won't go into the reasons why. We could talk about maybe later in the episode. But basically, I actually have the hot take that I think it's possible G2 might not even get up the Swiss system this time, mate. Like, I actually think these last 2 months...
Well, they did last year.
Yeah, it's just these last... I agree with you. Everything, basically, from EWC onwards has just been G2. Still winning, but making themselves look less and less and less convincing. And every single player almost has, like, fallen off / doesn't look as good. But with that said, Dom, since even G2's out here just showing their arse, obviously what they need and what we all need in esports is comfortable underwear to cover our arses. So MeUndies, as you can see there on the screen, are breathable, quick dry, moisture wicking, and anti-odor, which quite frankly, if you don't know, by the way, even though it's actually September now in the Netherlands where I live, it is still sometimes like 26 degrees outside at like 1 in the morning. So actually, I am sweating when I play games. So their micro-modal fabric is breathable and comfortable, especially with some of this is going to sound funny, but I didn't write it, but with the ball caddy, which... And maybe if you're American, this just sounds reasonable, but that's actually what they call like the pouch that they have there to stop another thing I wasn't aware of. Maybe I just wasn't in college at the right time, called bat winging, which apparently I'm assuming is when like one of your balls gets caught on that inside part of the basically everyone knows on normal underwear, those things that no one ever actually uses, you just pull them down, but you're supposed to put your dick through it or whatever. Like that's obviously where people are getting caught.
I know who uses that as a psychopath.
I don't know. I've never seen anyone personally, but apparently it's a thing. So on this one anyway, they've designed it so that can't happen to you. That's the key thing. And here's the thing. thing. This also, I'm going to read this out because this was in their copy and I just think it's funny. So I won't use my own words. MeUndies has a cut for every guy's butt. That's the opening line. I didn't write that, but listen, it's a banger. I can't lie. It's coming out with some heat rocks. And as a result, they have 10 different styles ranging from boxer briefs to jock straps and to special pouch underwear, which, as I said, stops the bat winging thing. They come in 100 different colours and prints, ranging from black to, and this is actually their words, all over dinosaurs. Now, again, listen, if you want dinosaurs on your underwear, they got you covered. That wasn't even in my mind, but now I'm aware of it. It is a thing. So the problem-free philosophy is this. If you don't like your first pair of MeUndies, then it's on them. They'll cover it. So also, they're basically guaranteeing you'll enjoy the product. So since summer is coming, be prepared with MeUndies. Get 20% off your first order and support Last Free Nation Network. Plus free shipping, so also send it out for free at MeUndies.com/ you can see it on the screen, League Show. LEAGUESHOW. That's MeUndies.com / League Show for 20% off plus free shipping. MeUndies comfort from the inside out. Right, let's get into it then, Dom. Because, I mean, there's a million angles we can do it, but I think on this show we don't have to go in order. We can just talk about the teams and then talk around all the aspects. So, like, we were talking about G2. Let's just do G2 first of all, because normally, Dom, this is actually why also this show would have actually gotten... By the way, I actually think LEC fans would have flamed us if we'd done this show every week like we did last year.
Oh, 100%.
Because here's the thing. They would have gotten so mad at you for doing the same take every split, which is beyond basically like the first split winter. Even when G2 wins these splits, I watch it and I'm like, bro, you're so lucky this competition is bad in Europe. Like, dude, some of these teams should be beating you. Like, even like in spring, I remember in spring was the one where like their bot lane was just taking turns to int fucking games and doing nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Then in like summer, you had the times where like Broken Blade sometimes was a bit invisible in top lane, and then you got to the season finals, you did that weird like Irelia pick against Mad Light. Like they've been Yike, I think, looks recently like he's been a battle player. Bro, they're all over the place. Like, I actually can't do the thing people want me to do if I'm European, which is, it's okay, guys, we're a one-team region and at least G2's dope. Like that, you're right, that narrative is from MSI, mate. That's from the team that almost beat T1. The team from AWC onwards. Bro, this last month, like I just said, is almost like G2 winning, but making themselves look as unconvincing as possible while doing it. So I think even G2's in a bad state, bro. Where are we at on this team?
I mean, I think that they figured out some things in this final weekend. Like it's not great, but it's something, because recently, if you look at, you know, how they won their first match against BD, or the reverse sweep against BDS, and you think about summer season finals, not the season finals here, but the finals that they played in summer.
The one where they did the comebacks against Fnatic guys, where they 3-0'd them. Yep.
Yeah, when they 3-0'd them, when they had all the massive throws, they caught a bunch of throws. They weren't doing anything to force the enemy team to make a mistake. At least in this last week, they figured out one thing that allowed them to get leads or force the enemy to make some type of mistake, which is the constant lane swaps. Like, they understood, not the level 1 lane swaps, but like 5 minutes for grubs. They would just rotate their bot lane top, and they understand tempo better than other teams, so they would rotate the bot lane top. Mad Lions or Fnatic would try to match. By the time that they try to match, the bot lane would have pushed in the wave, reset, go back bot. They were just playing this game where they're just avoiding the early game, which has been their weakest part, by constantly swapping, and they're just getting advantages because they understand tempo better than the other teams. And if you look at how Mad Lions and Fnatic are playing, they actually had no idea how to ever like catch up in tempo. They just feel like they feel like it is literally a perpetual thing. It's like, oh, they push in the wave and now they're going back bot, and then they push in the wave and they're going back top. And it's like, they don't know how to possibly fix that situation where it's like, okay, we have to like accept lanes for a little bit, and then we use something to break it. We use a TP to break it, or we use the fact that we're stronger to break it, or we stay at extra wave, or like your top lane has to proxy a wave. There has to be something that you can do to reset the tempo on the map, and there literally was just no time where they actually reset tempo into G2. But I feel like that's at least something for G2, because before that, like, I don't really know how they beat. Like, if I were to ask you, how did they beat Fnatic in season finals? You'd probably be like, oh, well, because Fnatic threw. Or summer season finals, like the summer finals. Yes. You'd be like, oh, well, Fnatic just threw. That would be the reasoning for why they ended up winning those games. The BDS series was like, oh, BDS like choked. Like, that's how it felt. There wasn't a real tangible thing they did to make BDS play worse. But versus Fnatic and Mad this week, they actually did find something that the enemy teams like Mad and Fnatic just were not able to figure out, or something that Fnatic and Mad are just not like smart enough in game to solve this problem.
I mean, one thing I would throw into this topic is this, which is I do think this is where, even when G2 looks bad, there's always like redeeming factors that people ignore. Like it's never wholly bad. Like I'll give you an example. Even though I actually think in the season finals against Fnatic just now, I actually think Mickey X looked fucking insane. Like you say, basically what the bot lane did is what gapped the whole fucking game, and there was no way Fnatic was going to overcome that. But bro, even when Mickey X was at his worst and would like in the initial laning phase or just die inexplicably, had the amount of games where he would still find some like mid or late game move or like team fight create is bonkers, mate. Even when he was playing bad, he could give you a way to win. And I actually think, by the way, I saw you made like a banger tweet about this. I actually do also agree, mate. He actually just straight up like ran one of those fucking finals games to an extent that is insane for a support player. Like he actually was just like the best player in the server in that one.
Yeah, the game 3, he actually just was
bonkers,
playing jungle. He was playing jungle better than Yike in that one. Yes. He was literally just playing jungle better than Yike. It just is what it is. I don't know what exactly went on there. Like I don't know why. Like Yike was so late on so many different plays, but if you think about how the game progressed, right? First thing that happens is he knows his jungler is pathing bot. This is in game 3. Enemy jungler is pathing top. So because this jungler is coming bot side, he just flashes aggressively on the enemy AD to just get his cleanse and just chunk him because you're setting up for a later dive, which is actually a good play. I see a lot of teams do this in Asia, and not that many teams are like thinking that far ahead in terms of how to set up a play in Europe and NA. So he flashes, and even though he doesn't like trade flash or anything, or you know, he only gets the cleanse, he gets a good enough trade that then the AD carry has to base. And because the AD carry has to base, they dive the Leona. This Leona dive, he dies for it, and the enemy team gets first blood. But because he dies, and the enemy Leona, they needed to dive him a second time, 15 seconds later, he knows he's first on the map. So what does he do with that? Goes mid, goes top, then goes mid again. Like he is literally just on the map first permanently, and he's just making plays. And the plays should have been better than they were. Like the top play, Yike just completely butchered it. He just misses W, like misses kill. Like Yike just played it as bad as humanly possible. But these plays that Mickey X set up, I mean, he was just running the entire fucking game. I mean, you don't see this out of that many players.
You remember this last year and the last 2 years when there was those splits where Carrier would look amazing. This is people always just comment on the ADCs and the pick. One of the other reasons was he would do shit like this. He would just come like across the whole map and like you say, be like a daughter's second jungler basically. Like I actually think it's underrated because, like I say, I understand that. Don't get me wrong, mate. For like the spring and summer splits, there were times when Mickey X looked mega sus, and he definitely had games where if he wasn't on G2, he would have thrown the game. But like this is why I think like he's an example of a player, a bit like Jankos, maybe not this year, obviously, where even when they're not like at their peak in terms of like overall performance, they just have like extra qualities that other players don't have. Because I agree, I think for a Western support player, like the only person I could even see doing some of this shit is Core JJ. That's it. I don't think anyone else is on this level, bro. The others are just support players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they just don't see the game like that. I think a lot of this just comes from having a bunch of experience in that, playing in different metas and understanding, you know, I have Temple on the map. I can use this to really like abuse other people. And if I just like trade flashes with mid, or if I, you know, go top and like help my top laner push out a wave or whatever, you can fix so many things that are happening on the map. And this is something that is like one of Mickey X's biggest strengths. I mean, the reason why he wasn't able to do this previously is he was just losing lane way too hard. If you look at how he was playing in the summer finals, he's just getting solo killed like level 1, level 2. So how do you get tempo to go mid when you're perma pushed under turret? You can't leave because your AD carry is going to get dove. Like it just feels like there was nothing that he could actually do because his laning was just not up to par. And they were able to fix that a little bit.
One thing I would ask you is this, which is, this is one area, actually, where obviously, famously, everyone always contrasted Hylissang with Mickey X, right? They were both those mechanical lane supports, but if they roam, they can get off like a sick play, right? One area that I actually think they both share the same quality in is this is why they actually int so badly, though, dude. Because you know what's weird is if I was like the coach of Mickey X this split, I could just cynically say to him, like, bro, think about, like, especially when he's playing like Poppy, bro, you don't have to do much in lane, mate. Like, I know Hans Samo wants to win the lane, but in certain times, if you start inting, just sort of gracefully lose, get to the mid game. By the way, we're going to talk about this later. G2 is like levels above mid to late macro in all their rivals. Like, essentially, we don't have to have a crazy lead to win the game. But the problem is, I get the feeling that just like Hylissang, part of the issue with Mickey X goes like this, Dom. It's that because they're actually like mega mechanically, and they used to be gods in lane sometimes if they're the right team, I get the the feeling like they're not thinking like I am. Like, well, I'm going to win mid to late. They're thinking I'm just going to win every game from the beginning. In fact, they're like chasing the dragon. And think of the times when you have seen Mickey X and Hillesang just destroy like the opening part of a laning phase, like the first 3 levels, or catch the guy or waste his summoner. Like, I think in a fucked up way, they sort of play a bit too greedy, if you know what I mean. Like, I get that Hans Sama does seem like he's the ADC that always wants to like win the 2v2. But even so, sometimes as his support, you got to just be like, we haven't got it this game. You know what I mean? Like, just hold off a bit. There's no point us dying 3 times and having to do like 3 miracles in the mid game. Like, sometimes it's a bit too much for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this is the thing about playing with Hans is like in this series, if you think about like how the approach he took, it felt like he was kind of back to old Hans, like where he looked really confident. I think that he actually had a really good series. Like, I mean, great. If I probably would have given who ended up getting MVP for this series, I have no idea. Was it actually? I would have guessed
Hans? Mickey X, but I'll have a look. Let me have a look.
I would have guessed Mickey X as well, but if not, I would probably have given it to Hans.
Let's see.
We can check it out.
Actually, was.
I mean, the point is that I think that he played a solid series, and I think they're going back to a lot of the things
was Hans Sama, according to like fandom or whatever, Wikipedia basically. They say it was Hans Sama. Okay. So fair play. He also deserves it. They were both
I could see it. Yeah. Also, just like having the Kalista pick back in there, I feel like now they're starting to have some of the angles where it's like you're starting to see what makes G2 strong. I mean, when you think about what they were last year, Hans was the guy who was playing Kalista Draven every single game. Like, it was permaban. That was how teams ended up beating them at Worlds when they ended up going on that, you know, that downslide where they lost to NRG, etc. Is because they played against Gen G. Gen G banned Draven Kalista, then everyone copied those bans, and suddenly the bot lane wasn't a point of pressure anymore. So I like seeing that Hans has been playing better. In general, it's just kind of unfortunate for me that they have like Yike is having such a bad time that they're not able to coordinate with their jungle to like make themselves have the early game leads, because I think that's the last part that G2 needs to get better at now. Their mid to late game seems fine. Their macro seems fine. Their understanding of tempo and swapping is fine. But I just don't think you can beat the top teams in the world having the early game that they have right now.
I've got another angle I want to ask you about as well, which goes like this. When I saw all fucking summer long, there was never Caps like locking in the fucking Zeri. He like barely ever played it. He didn't even play the Smolder. You know this. You watch the LPL. Dude, those picks fucking destroy the LPL and the LCK. Like, if you give like put it this way, even people who think that Rookie's washed, he isn't. But if you put Rookie on a Zeri, mate, fucking buckle in. He's going to get like 9 kills and carry this game. You even put some of the people who aren't considered like monsters now, like Gajau who won that. He's going to be dangerous, right? Caps didn't play this the whole time. So what I did is I tried to do cope and think, he's got it in his back pocket. He doesn't need to play it now. He's going to bring it out at the right time. Bro, after seeing his Zeri in the games against BDS, it's nothing special. And his Smolder, bro, Humanoid looked great on 20. This Caps is just whatever. Like, does it not concern you? Because between Caps and Hans Sama, that's the one problem I have, Dom, is they don't really at the moment want to play the like non-traditional strong meta picks, if you know what I mean. Like, obviously, we know that Hans Sama isn't the Zeri player. By the way, he's barely ever played Ziggs ever in his whole career. Like, it's not like you can't win, but if two of your mates, because let's be real, here's the problem, right? I know Broken Blade's your boy, but in this team, he is usually used as the tertiary carry. You know what I mean? This team is about, by the way, in my opinion, it's just about Caps is the best player, but even then, you just play to bot. You play through Hans Sama. In an ideal world for G2, I think they'd even tell you they want Hans Sama to be the main carry on his champions that he likes with a comp that makes sense, and then Caps contribute to that and have some agency, right? I do have an issue that these two players, I need these two players to be amazing on these like auto-win champions, if you know what I mean. They don't seem like they play them much, or they don't seem like they're comfortable with them.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about G2 draft priority in general. If you look at how they progressed, it doesn't really make sense how they went from being like the Corki first pick every single game team to remember at like the beginning of these season finals when they played against Mad Lions, they were like banning Corki on blue side and stuff. Like there was just like Corki bans that were happening on blue side. It's like, wait, so you were first picking this champion, but now on blue side, you're afraid to pick it. And then it's the same patch. And towards the end of season finals, Corki is like their high prio and they're giving Smolder. So I feel like G2 like develops their priorities in a really strange manner. It just feels like they drop champions a lot. I talked to actually Perks about it on I think when we were watching one of the series, and one thing that he said about Caps specifically is that Caps generally just really hates playing nerf champions. If like a champion is nerfed like 1-2%, Like, he has a very negative reaction towards that 1-2%, where most people will be like, oh, it's still fine, like, play it anyway.
Well, usually, if you think about it, actually, that's one thing I will criticize Asians. Often they'll just keep playing it the week after it's nerfed, where it's like half as good, isn't it? They'll just play what they think the broken champion is. That's the opposite. Yeah, true.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely times where champions are nerfed too hard, but then there's champions like Corki that are just being first picked everywhere. I mean, they're being played top and mid. Everyone is still playing it. The changes did not kill the champion at all, and then G2 is just refusing to play it earlier in the season final. So it feels like they've just been kind of behind because of that. When you look at like how their meta read has progressed, it's like 1 week behind what everyone else is doing. So like they come into those finals and they're not really playing. I mean, they're playing some weird things. I mean, the Gwen, what the fuck was the Gwen? The Gwen versus Mad Lions.
What even is that pick?
I don't understand it at all. It's like,
bro, you would think
like
this is one thing I have to ask you. Listen, you're a jungler, so give me your take on this. Like, I also think you see this from Blabber over in C9, by the way. One thing that alarms me about these players is, like, Yike especially has actually throughout his time in G2 played all styles of jungle, and at one point that's one of the things that looked actually like a positive about him. He's quite versatile. He's willing to fit. Bro, this last month and a half or so, it feels like he just wants to force like carry picks or something. He won't just play a shitty fucking Maokai or Sejuani game when I want him to, you know. Even though, like I said, if you're going to play mid to bot, you're going to have to do that sometimes. You're going to have to swallow that pill. But it's essentially what Jankos did as a professional. He went from being the carry jungler to like, well, shit, if I've got these teams, I may as well play the fucking Sejuani. Why wouldn't I? Like, don't you think it's a clear deficiency for Yike second year in his career, right? This is something where there's some sort of disconnect there.
I would say that the reason why he's picking these carry junglers and stuff like Gwen is for comfort. Like, his teammates want him to be comfortable because they know he's not playing particularly well right now. So they're trying to get him in a zone where he is going to have a very streamlined, easy game. If you look at how easy the game was, the game 3 was for Yike, where he's just able to like run it down a lane as Brand, but Mickey X is like solving every single problem on the map. So it's just like, all right, farm, get your Leandries, get your like Rylai's, you'll be strong later on. Just farm the jungle and be useful later on is essentially all he has to do in these games in order to win. I think the Gwen pick is kind of in this same type of mentality of like, okay, what's going to make him comfortable within the game? Maybe it's something that he plays in solo queue, something that he's confident on individually. You're just trying to put him in a state where he's going to be able to contribute. And it's not like he wasn't playing things like Ivern, you know, like he was playing things like Ivern, he was playing things like Maokai, but he just wasn't playing them well before. Like he wasn't doing enough with the picks. And I think the reason they fell back on these carry picks is because that's actually who Yike is at his core. He wants to be a carry jungle. I mean, the thing that's been super weird for me is, as somebody who watches a ton of LPL and LCK, if you look at like LCK and LPL, Lilia is first banned. I made this point a bunch of times. Lilia's banned like against a lot of different junglers. Like Tarzan was pulling bans on it for a while. It's banned almost every single game into Owner. Like Owner cannot touch the pick. And this was Yike's pick when it wasn't even meta. But then he just doesn't play it at any point in this entire summer split. Like summer split, season finals, nothing. He didn't play it one time, and it just was so confusing to me because you would think that would be his meta.
He picked it in fucking winter, and that wasn't even a pick back then, guys. That's mental. Okay.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So I don't really understand it. I feel like it should be a thing where this pick should be a core thing that helps the team like have some type of advantage in draft. It should be like, oh, we can't give Yike Lilia. We see this with a bunch of other picks. You know, we see a bunch of people that, you know, get the, because they're so good on picks, they're able to just pull the ban every single time. But it just feels like the Yike Lilia is something teams don't even consider. I would much rather see Lilia than fucking Gwen. Like, what does Gwen do that Lilia doesn't do? Sure, maybe in a game if there's like 3 tanks and an enchanter, sure, go the Gwen. It's perfect there. But in a lot of these other circumstances, I just don't think it's actually a good pick.
Then, as I said before, to broach to talk about some of the other teams, because we can come back later and talk about how would they do at Worlds and all that jazz. If we talk a bit about Fnatic then, like one of the things I have to branch off immediately is what I just said earlier, Dom. Holy shit. Like, at this point, you have to just say it, right? I thought before, I used to think this is a criticism towards teams when they play BDS. Fuck it, it's everyone except G2. After the middle of the game, is just hoping to win by fights. That's it. Or stealing a Baron or something. Like, nobody has any clue what to do on the map. It's fucking crazy. Like, I know this wasn't as bad as the summer finals as we were talking about, but These are, again, some games where if you're Fnatic, like, pretty sweet, I'm a massive critic of Noah. He actually had a pretty good fucking series. Even Humanoid, who's painfully inconsistent, had a whole bunch of carry games. It's like, bro, what could win Fnatic a series at this point in time? You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you have to be able to close a game. You have to be able to actually do something with a lead. Dude, normally we criticise players for only being good at front running and not being able to come from behind. These fuckers can't even win when they front run. What is this?
What I don't understand about this Fnatic team is when they have like a 10k lead, why they don't just go to the objective and start hitting the objective. Like the enemy jungler will have no flash. You literally just go to the Baron and you start hitting the Baron. And because you're stronger than them, you can tank the Baron and you could possibly turn.
By the way, the most basic LPL player that you will ever see in every single game. Every single game is just you go to the Baron, start hitting, and you force them to come and fight you and take the Baron.
When you're stronger than them, and then you just make the right decision afterwards. The game one was so criminal. Somehow, just think about the situation they're in. They have a gold lead. They are stronger in any fight. They have a 600 stack smolder, like literally the strongest smolder I've ever seen in a competitive game.
Mental, yeah.
And they somehow didn't contest Soul and lost Baron at the same time. How the fuck is that possible? How are you stronger and you didn't trade for either of the objectives? You somehow lost both at the same time. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Think about what a nightmare it is to be on the other team when you're trying to take the fucking dragon or the Baron and they just do that fucking ult across your team. Like, that's your nightmare right there, being trapped in the pit while they do that. And these fuckers aren't even threatening it. It's crazy, isn't it?
I mean, they're so scared of throwing that they won't even do the plays that are necessary to win the game. You know how easy it is to win this game? This first game where Yikes on Zyra, no flash Zyra. How the fuck is the Zyra ever getting in the pit without flash? So you're stronger than them. You win a team fight, and they have no way to fucking steal it. So how easy is it to walk to the Baron? I feel like Caps just goes to the side lane, and Fnatic just loses their entire mind. They just think like, oh man, he's in the side. Oh, he's pushing deep. It must be really good what Caps is doing. It's Caps. Like Caps just has no other play to make in this game. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to go to the side lane and push the side lane and try to get tempo somewhere, force them to respond. So at least maybe I can get to the fight. If there is a fight, I can get to the fight a little bit before the smolder. Like, that's just what he's hoping. He's not in any position to actually be strong enough to fight in this game. When he was on like 3 items, the game was fucking over. Yeah. Like, he was rapid fire Corki doing like 100 damage in auto. The game was fucking over, but Fnatic is just incapable. And you saw it so many different times in that game one, where Fnatic wins the team fight. It's like, okay, are you taking an inhib or anything? And it's like, every time they want to fight, they got nothing off of it. It's like, they could maybe even borderline end, but they're not even getting an inhib. Like, the bot inhib would have been free there. They're not hitting objectives. They're just like, as long as we don't int, we'll win the game. Like, that is their mentality. It's like, remember, we threw last time, so just don't throw and we'll win. It's like, you have to fucking do something to progress the game at some point. Whereas G2, as soon as G2 gets like a small lead, it just feels like the whole game's completely over. Like, they just make all the correct decisions around the objectives and just out macro the enemy team. And it should be so much easier to macro from ahead. Like, when you're ahead, you're the ones that have control. The enemy team has to deal with lack of vision, lack of the ability to fight. It should be very scary to walk up anywhere because you feel like you could get picked. But I don't know. They just don't do anything and just lose. It's very frustrating to watch because I feel like Fnatic, if you took the players out of the game and you just had them watch the game, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's a free Baron.
Oh, sure.
But like, in the game, they're just so stressed that they aren't able to actually play.
Yes. No, that is actually also the best way to describe it, Tom, is what people don't realize is this. I can tell you, by the way, it's the same in every esport. Like, I can break down a clutch scenario in Counter-Strike, what you obviously should do, what the correct play. But the reason I know a lot of even pro-level players won't do that is they're not sitting like me in a cool manner just going, oh, I guess you could. Like, they're feeling all the pressure and then they're having all those intrusive thoughts. Like you say, Tom, I actually think what's funny is if you want to contrast the summer finals from the season finals, you're right, that would be the major difference. In the summer finals, Fnatic's like, go for everything, and then they blow the whole game. And this time around, it's like, instead of having, like, here's the correction, they were just like, go the opposite way, don't do anything. And it's like, well, that doesn't work either. Like, you've actually, if anything, second-guessing yourself has now made, it's like a classic saying, you know the saying, paralysis by analysis. It's like, by trying to figure out the perfect play, you've just done nothing. Because this is something Monty complained about. There is one of those games for real, where they're just, like, stood there in the middle, like, Just doing nothing. You're not going to objective. You're not like farming. You're not fucking doing it, setting up a kill or a pit. You're just standing there waiting for a fight to happen. You're essentially saying to G2, please just offer me the game. Like, I'm stronger than you, so please just have a fight on my terms, offer me the game. And if there's one thing I'll give G2 credit for, is first of all, when people don't want to fight, they somehow make them fight. And then when you're doing this scenario, they just won't take the shit fight. Like, it's crazy that these teams, it's why, if you saw that thing, you know where, what's his name? Romain did his usual thing where he posts the scrim results and all that. Bro, this is like a meme. If you don't know, guys, the scrim results was like Fnatic had actually been doing like pretty back and forth with G2 for most of the split. Then they got just like rocked in their last scrim block. Some at Mad Dom like 6-0. And then they just didn't scrim against G2 after that. G2 had to scrim like literal pickup teams and like ERL squads and all, like, and they still beat you. It's like, bro, you can't do anything at this point in time. Like, you must be so mentally broken in Fnatic. It's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we should bring up the Dardo and Nightshare.
Yeah, so basically, if you don't know, they had a thing where you actually had to be some sort of like paid member of like the fan club or something. But basically, Fnatic did a Q&A about this, probably to like a lay phase of like that the team's shit and the garbage and all that. So Nightshare and Dardo apparently were in this, and what happened was someone posted some like notes of what was said, a Fnatic super ultra fan. So we're going to read from some of that and sort of like give our thoughts or postulate what we think went on. So obviously, like the first angle on this one, Dom, is... I actually want to get, before we go into the details, I want to ask you one thing. Because one thing I would say is this. Some people think I'm being contrary on this take, but I actually think one of the people that is the most maligned in Fnatic is Nightshare and the coaching staff. Because when I look at their team, though, you have to remember, he wasn't there at the beginning of last year. That was that Crusher fucking guy, that Portuguese guy or whatever, who was with like bringing rocks in and all that shit. If you remember, Nightshare came in partway through the season and actually like rescued Fnatic. He sort of made them competent again. They got Noah, they had the glow up under him. So for me, I actually think if you look at the roster, I don't think this roster is as good as G2's. I don't think it's even one of the better Fnatic rosters in the last few years. I think he's actually done a very good job results-wise. And then I also would speculate myself, a lot of like the drafting inadequacies, I think are mega idiosyncratic to the players, bro. I don't think these are ones where he's telling them play that or pick this. So what? Before we get into the details, what are actually your thoughts on Fnatic coaching staff? Do you think they're frauds? Have they fucked up? What's your take?
It's weird. It's very hard to watch a team have like the same macro problem over and over again and not be able to solve it. Like that, that does make me feel like there is some incompetence there. I don't know. Maybe it's just the players can't see it, but it's not like we're dealing with some super complicated like macro strategy or like a very intense 2v1 where there's a bunch of small decisions that need to be made on the fly. I mean, this is as simple as how do we do Baron when we're ahead? How do we actually how do we carry a lead? Like, what do we play for? How do we control vision? And they just feel like they don't get better at that, which, I mean, it could just be that the players are incapable of learning, but I feel like there has to be some type of coaching error for you to not make the same mistakes. But if you take a step back and you look at the roster, this is not so Fnatic doesn't have that much money. This is a budget roster.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a roster. Like, if you think about the players...
Remember, dude, this is a rebuild. They had to get rid of Reckless, get rid of Upset. They had loads of big name players, I'm sure, were very expensive, yeah.
This team should not be top 2 with the roster
they
have.
Definitely not. No.
Like, Oscar is really good for where he came. I mean, this was just an ERL player. They just picked up an ERL top laner. Like, within 2 years, he's become one of the best top laners in LEC. Noah was another pickup from ERL. Jun was another pickup from like tier 2 Korea. Yeah. I mean, they're finding players that are good enough to compete at the highest level in Europe from either good scouting or just from understanding what type of players would function within their team. So it's not bad in that regard. Like, I think they're overperforming what the roster should do. Like, being a consistent top 2 in this region, I would say that that's good for Fnatic, all things considered. It's just, it's like I said, it's very hard to not feel like there has to be some incompetence in the coaching staff that they aren't able to even band-aid any of these solutions. Like, I could understand if they were just losing early game. I mean, if you're just worse players and you're losing early game consistently, sometimes there's not that much you can do. It's like, well, they have better players. They're fucking outlaning us. They know how to play like with the lead. They use their jungle really well. Those losses, I think, are more acceptable than losing. Like, they threw 4 games in a row versus G2. The 3 in summer finals and the first game in season finals. All of these are big fucking leads. Like, theoretically insurmountable leads that are thrown in every single game. And that, to me, is really hard. It just feels like they're not a team. I mean, even in the final game, they were up like 2-3K. Like, that's another one where I feel like they should be able to at least hold that lead for a way longer portion of the game. But... it is what it is. I guess like you can't be great at everything, and I think maybe they need more coaching staff. The one thing I will say is, even though the same macro decisions were made incorrectly in the games in summer finals and game 1 of season finals, at least it wasn't like as disgusting from like an individual standpoint. I mean, the summer finals, it felt like you could literally just never win. It's like somebody's just gonna choke, and it was absolutely absurd. This one at least was just the indecisiveness.
I mean, really people individually played well. They just as a team made the wrong decisions, right?
Yeah, that's what I would say. So, I mean, there's something there. But, I mean, when we get into this...
Yeah, let's do it.
Comments by,
so pick some out, because I've already seen a few hilarious ones. Pick some out. What's interesting to you?
The one where you talk about the players being like, yeah, so the players are like super... Like, we don't need a psychologist. We don't have a psychologist. But the problem is that we have like players that are really stressed and like they're beating themselves in game and they're like mentally distraught, all this type of stuff. It's like, that is literally why you need the sports psychologist. Yes. It just seems so weird that they're saying they don't need a sports psychologist and then talking about all the things that have happened recently.
I mean, put it this way, I'll give you an example. When you say, as they point out, like, we don't need the sports psychologist, look at the quote, Dom. It goes, this is also, by the way, where people, in trying to not acknowledge trigger words, just end up contradicting themselves. Think about this quote, guys. It says, no mental block. So they're saying Fnatic players don't have a mental block against G2. Yep. Get ready for the rest of this sentence. No mental block. But the more the boys lose, the more anxious and stressed they become with the mentality, I have to beat them. That's a mental block! You just described, in other words, by the way, imagine I did the same thing, Dom, for the last 3 years about G2. Remember when they used to beat Rogue every time? And I went, hey, Rogue doesn't have a mental block against G2. It's just that every time we lose to them, we get even more anxious and stressed and think we have to beat them. Like, how else would you describe a mental block, brother? That just, like, I think you've just nailed it. And you've also just nailed, as you say, who's the most obvious person who can fix that? It isn't some macro wizard. It isn't it's a fucking sports psychologist. Like, that's actually the only person I can even think of I'd be calling immediately. In fact, you need a whole team. You need, like, someone for everyone probably in this team. You know, that is wild, isn't it? It's so, what weird, like, double speak they're using.
I mean, it just reminds me of when there's always those, like, threads and stuff where people say, I'm not racist, but, and then you just know what's following that is going to be racist. Like, you know, like, it's like, but, like, this group of people is just inferior to this other group of people. Like, it's like the same type of thing where it's like, we don't have a mental block, but we are more anxious and stressed, and then we keep on losing, and it keeps on getting worse and worse, and we actually feel like at this point we can't beat them. It's like, what the fuck? Like, that, you know, what is the but gonna be? It's not a mental block, but as soon as you put the but there, what could they possibly say? Because if they had other reasons why they lost that didn't have anything to do with like the mentality, then they would not say we don't have a mental block, but it would just be like, we don't have a mental block. Our issues are blank.
Yes. Because I also thought another part for me that I can't handle, bro, is this shit where they literally... by the way, if you're a coach, here's the one thing you don't ever do as a coach or GM, is do what me and Dom just did. You know where we were very fair? We pointed out that actually Fnatic does have worse players than G2, and actually they shouldn't even be in the finals. I agree. I think that's overperformance. I think, just like I used to say about BDS, in a sane world where this Fnatic roster was like the 3rd or 4th seed, I'd be loving them, Dom. Then I'd go, hey, they've got some upset potential in the BO1s at Swiss. Obviously, don't expect them to get out of Swiss, and you know, we'll have our top 2 teams, G2 and insert whatever team should have been good. Vitality. They'll be the ones that'll, you know, do the real shit, and they can win the series, right? Here's why this is whack. If you're the coach and you're the GM, bro, who the fuck else is getting the players? Like, you're the guys picking these guys. So here's the 2 anglers I hate. One, they go out of their way, even though, as we talked about on the G2 segment, there's literally things you can criticize every G2 player for. They make every G2 player sound like they are, like, literally fucking prime Gen G right now, unbeatable, who just solved the game. And then secondly, they put stupid shit like this. Like, how can Dardo be in a call and then say, or have someone else, I don't know who said it, just say, Fnatic players are less experienced than G2 players? Why are you picking up rookies then? Bro, you did that, not me. Listen, the LEC is full to the brim with veterans. Like, you know what? Even people like Trimby, who you had, were out there. Like, why? If that's a problem for winning championships and you're Fnatic, I think you've entered your own season, haven't you? Like, why would you recruit all those rookies? Because, by the way, I agree with that point, actually. If you actually look... Bro, they have too many inexperienced players. Like, the joke is Razork's a veteran compared to some of the others. And to me, he only came in the league like 4 years ago or something. So I think that's such a weird way to tell on yourself. Like, you basically... you know the saying, you probably heard it before, Dom, a bad workman blames his tools. He never thinks it's him who fucked up. It's just, oh, this hammer's not good enough for the nail. Like, what do you think of this angle that you're just blaming the rosters outright, you know?
I'm not sure what to make of it. I mean, yeah, like, I think the Fnatic roster being second best should be an overperformance, but I think from the fan side, what people see is this team was like the second best team almost instantly. Like when they got this core together, when they brought in Oscar and then they ended up bringing in Noah. Once that team like had some time, like I don't really consider the spring split with Oscar because it was so little time to prep for the split. Then in summer, you have this team put together and they're almost already like, even though they got third and Giant X beat them, they're pretty much like in there. They're like one of the best teams. And then they were essentially the second best team for the entire year. Yep. Obviously, they lost to Mad Lions in.
Even that was like fluky. That was like a Frescovi one-off game. You know, they probably should have won that series. Yeah.
So when I look at the whole situation, it's like the problem that I have is that they hit their ceiling like so quickly and they never improved. Like it was like they figured out how to be pretty good, but then there's been like almost no improvement. So I think people would feel better about Fnatic if, like, let's say they started off and they were like an 8th place team, and then the next split they're like 6th, and they're starting to like get better like time after time. Then maybe then they're 4th, and then they're 3rd, and then they're 2nd. By now you'd be like, oh, who knows? Maybe next split they have something. But the thing is that they hit that peak so early, and they've just plateaued there for so long that people have lost the they've just lost the patience to see Fnatic improve. People are like, okay, well now we know it's never going to improve, so now people are calling for heads.
Also, I'll just say it this way, right? That angle was a lot more powerful, Dom, earlier in the year of like, well, G2's just too good and their players are all unbeatable. Guys, let me just put some information to you. I'm going to mention 4 series and 2 of them G2 won. Are you ready? So how about the upper bracket final of summer where Fnatic did beat G2, so they've already beaten them once. Then you had the lower bracket final where BDS was almost beating G2, but G2 did all those comebacks. Then you have the Mad Lions already beat G2 like a few weeks ago, and then as we just talked about, like then you have this other scenario where you have the fucking globe, like the BDS one this time around, where again BDS could have beaten them. Like, bro, this isn't like G2 never lost. That used to be the case before. Then it's not like they only lose to, you know, BDS but they've lost in theory, on paper, spiritually. They've lost all these series. Like they put themselves in position to lose. These are all the top 4 teams, bro. So in this scenario, if you're Fnatic, like, that's why it has to, on some level, also be on you. Even though I'm saying, I agree, I think it's overperforming to make the fight. But the point is, it's not like you have a 0% chance to win. You're acting like you got a 0% chance. It never, ever could have happened. Not only can you eye test-wise, in both these last 2 finals, see it's doable, but you also know that, like, this is where you've lost the battle if you actually do believe that, like, they're just better than us and always will be, and nothing we can do with Caps is too impactful, and we have... Like, what are you talking about, you fucking loser? Bro, if you even have, like, I'm not joking, a 10% chance to win, you go into the game like, bro, let's just make this 10% happen. Yeah, we should lose, but let's just make it. Let's just do it. Like, that's why I don't buy the whole thing. It's not a mental block. This team is so mentally blocked, it's crippling. It's like, you know this, Dom. If Mad Lions had actually managed to, or BDS had actually managed to beat G2, Fnatic probably would have just won this finals, no matter how anyone played. I think it's just the G2 factor is in the fucking back of their heads. Because, bro, notice this never happens in the BO1 part of LEC. In BO1, they're always playing insanely good against G2 in that one-off BO1 game. Suddenly they're fucking smurfing, people are looking super strong, but you put them in a series and these guys will find a way to lose to G2 every time, mate, every time.
Yeah, I just don't know why this excuse doesn't, work for other players.
Yeah.
Like in Asia, we never see this. Asia, we never see like, oh, our players are less experienced. Like our poor Hanwha Life players, like we just aren't as experienced as Faker. How can we ever beat them?
Dude, like, imagine the coach of Hanwha Life coming out. Well, how do you expect me to beat Gen G? They've got Chovy. Zika's not as good as Chovy. They don't do that, dude. They just fucking own the loss, of course.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, oh, we have to improve. And then also when you watch the fucking games, I can understand that in certain circumstances. The winter 2023 G2, that team just looked so far better than everyone else. That's like, yeah, there's nothing you can do. Like, if you lose that, it's like, yeah, they're just fucking better than us. They're stomping us every single fucking game. We need to get better and like try to work on some plans, and then maybe we can contest. But that's a loss that it makes sense to own. Losses like this, it's like you're losing to the weakest version of G2. Like G2 looks fucking shook.
Yep.
When you look at the player, like they just don't look like they're confident as they could at least be as a team, and as confident as we've seen. And this version of G2 is still just beating them no matter what. I mean, they're what, like, it's like 6-1 in the last 7 games they played against each other. I don't know. I don't think that this G2 is using their massive experience in order to like clutch out situations. I would understand that if the games were even. If you got into like an even mid to late game and G2 was able to just out macro you slightly, it's like, yeah, they are just more experienced. Okay, that makes sense. The way that they lost wasn't experience. It was literally just the mental block. It's like ineptitude, not understanding how to play around objectives, not understanding like how to force a Nash, all this type of stuff.
By the way, even though I actually think this is one of the better finals Humanoid played, and actually there were a couple of games where he was doing totally fine, he did a really good job even, I also do think that when they said this statement later on that I'm going to read, this statement, like, look, I get that teams have balance and not every player has to be like this, but this statement doesn't make any sense for a team that has the central point, giant contract it's based around is Humanoid. Get ready, it goes. When recruiting players, Fnatic is specifically looking for team players that can adapt, players that love the game, and bring good energy and vibe into the group. Didn't you just describe the opposite of Humanoid in every respect there? Like, it can adapt. No, he just plays his style. Loves the game. This guy doesn't even fucking like to play League of Legends, we're told. Brings good energy. He's probably the most cynical, fucking sardonic player you'll ever meet. And then the vibe, like the vibe with that guy I've heard from teammates and coaches is like, as soon as he thinks like you fucked up and you're an idiot, you're just an idiot forever, him. He'll just like, give up on that guy. Like, bro, like, this is one of the problems with this team. I think Humanoid, by the way, I've done it a million times over, but I sort of agree. Monty had the best way of describing it on Summoning Insight. Well, the reason it's hard as an outsider to just look objectively at Humanoid's career and tell him, like, you're fucking up, you idiot. Like, why don't you practice more? It's because, bro, if this is him really, like, phoning it in, he's still good enough to be, like, top 3 in the region most days. Like, he gets away with it, guys. He doesn't get punished. Like, I would say he's been punished in this sense, which is, if he ever wants to tell me, like, Nemesis loser style, like, well, how was I supposed to ever win? You had, like, caps there. I would be like, bro, you had a million chances. Like, I'm not saying win them all, but win a couple. You know what I mean? Like, you only ever won with the El Yoya roster. That's it. Like, you've had loads of times you've been in semis and finals of LEC. So when's it going to happen? When are you going to get over the hump? Like, even, I never thought Larson was better than Caps, but he did one time beat him. He did get it done that one time, didn't he? Like, that's the problem. I know it's like a Western thing of like, it's cool to like not try hard and still be pretty good. But like, if I would say if I am Fnatic, Humanoid is one of the players I still have to look at and just go like, bro, if you're going to praise Caps, he's so insane. They can build around him. Can you do that to Humanoid? Because all I'll say is I've seen a lot of lineups built around him now. He's pretty good, but I don't feel like they're coherent lineups very often. They often have these problems. They often have issues with shot calling. They often have players that don't fit the squad. Like, I have to put some criticism at Humanoid's feet for the way Fnatic plays, because they've always had these issues, bro. All versions that have had him in the team.
Yep. I think the thing about Humanoid is people like to, really rate his international performances super highly. And I see things about like, oh, Humanoid's not clutch. Like, how is he not clutch? He's like showing up versus Gen G. It's like, no, that's when it's easy to play. That's when you're like
when you have the pressure,
underdogs and there's no expectation. And you don't actually have to win the game. You just need to not get shit on at all points. That's all you need to do in that game. Or even just do well only early game. That's fine, because it's like, oh, Gen G's gonna out macro us later on no matter what. When I'm watching these games, like there's a time where it's like, okay, if he was a really strong leader, if he knew how to like tell his team like what to do, you just need one person on the team ordering the team around in these mid to late game situations. If one person has a really good idea of what the game state looks like and can break down, okay, Zyra has no flash, like this is like Corky's in the side lane, we're gonna force and then we're gonna like do this, that'd be completely fine. It just feels like when you watch Fnatic play, they don't want to lose anything small to gain a big advantage. Like, they wouldn't be okay losing maybe an inhib turret to Caps in order to like get Baron and then just end the game, like just then siege and end the game. They just want it to be like, okay, we get everything, they get nothing, and then we just slowly progress and win. And when I'm watching Humanoid in these games, it just doesn't feel like he has that factor where he can like really get his own team over the hump, because these are winnable games. If you have one guy who has that like that leadership quality, I mean, if you look at all those old Perks teams when Perks was still like a top player in the league, all of them felt like, okay, if they ever got an advantage and there was like a way for them to win the game, those teams would just win. Like, they would always just win. And you just don't see that out of Fnatic. Fnatic is looking for a way to lose.
You know, when people have done that thing over the years, Dom, where they say that Perks should just roll top to support and be a shot caller in a team. Bro, maybe he should just be that in Fnatic. Because I sort of agree. Like, first of all, if Humanoid was the player people tell me is, because remember, they used to claim in Mad Lions he was also shot calling and he had a great eye for the game and he always knows what to do. It's like, bro, you're the guy with the mega fed smolder. Like, tell us what you want us to do. Tell us when to group. Tell us when to fight. Like, you know what? There's plenty of players I like, Dom. Upset, Forgiven, all the... Tell you what, they're not shy about telling you you what they want in the game, mate. Like, if they want you to fucking group and fight now and they're strong now, they'll just tell you. In fact, that's usually the biggest contention. Maybe another player disagrees or doesn't want to fight now. Like, the idea of humanoids being too cool for school, like, I mean, I could have said something there, but you should really know. It's like, what game are we playing now, mate? And then similarly, this is why I think Fnatic will always be flawed, is because even though their best players are Humanoid and Razork, bro, it's not a tired cliche, it's just true. They've never really had that great way of playing together. Like, I think Razork actually even gets slightly unfairly maligned for these losses, bro, because first of all, he also does look, if you watch when he plays in finals against G2, like he always plays worse than he does otherwise. Like, it looks like the pressure gets to him. And I notice people always call him out, Dom, for like late game moves he does, where he like throws a game that he was winning. Right? Even though it's true, why does that have to be on his shoulders every time? Like, by the way, when I watch people like Blabber use their hands and then make terrible decisions, I don't say Blabber can never be in Cloud9. I say, bro, can we get a support in who can cover for him there, who has like the shot calling or can like synchronize with him and like rein him in late in the game. That's what you needed in this scenario. So like, I also think that whole like Jun is good. He actually proved he was like a solid pickup, but I don't know that Jun and Razork is it either, mate. You know what I mean? Like, I maybe need a different, like I would actually bring in someone at support specifically for shot call. I think that's the obvious fix in this team.
Yeah, I mean, who could that be in the LEC that might have been on the team before?
The worst thing is they had Trimby, I know, as well, isn't it? That's the worst one.
Yeah.
Bro, why did you kick him? I'll still never understand that. You run that one back, surely. Come on. It's the most obvious run back ever.
They wanted a better mechanical support. I'll say this. I feel like Jun has got the biggest leash right now because he was playing well mechanically earlier on. Like, this was a horror finals from Jun. He's making just like so many just random like int plays, and he's, you know, the reason why they're losing some leads is just walking up mid and dying for no reason and all this type of stuff. Yep. And I feel like for some reason he just never gets criticized for it. Like,
I think people do that thing where, because he had the positive narrative around MSI, like he's had a glow, but he's better than you expect. It's like that's still being repeated now, like echoing off the walls, even though it's actually not been true for about 2 months now.
I mean, like, so for example, Noah played better than Jun in this finals, and Jun actually had a pretty bad finals.
Yeah.
When Noah plays bad, it's like, fuck Noah, get him, kick him out of the team. And then Jun just like runs it down, and everyone's like, no, Noah, Noah probably told you to do that, I guess. Like, it's fine, Jun, it's fine. Like, it's some bullshit like this. I don't know, man. Like, it's really fucking weird to me.
Like, mate, I am obviously, I've got my laminated membership card. I'm a certified Noah hater. And I'll say, he actually played pretty well in this finals. I don't think it was actually even his fault. Like, look, I'll definitely flame him because he did that stupid tweet where he promised he'd win and shot everyone up, which he obviously didn't do. But actually, of all the times he's failed, this wasn't it, guys. He actually was good in this final. Like, I actually thought he played totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those players where, I mean, he knows that you don't actually need to win if you launch a tweet like that. If you're a pro player and you're like, you guys are fucking haters and I'm going to prove you wrong. And then when you don't prove them wrong, you're like, well, I didn't prove them wrong.
I know, exactly.
People will just love that you're like, damn, look at the confidence. Like, that's Noah, what a beast. Then he just completely like chokes one of the opportunities that he had. I mean, there was 2 more opportunities for him to win. And he just choked one like solo super fucking hard. It's just all good.
Meanwhile, imagine this. Imagine if last year I'd done a tweet like that, Dom, where I was like, oh yeah, all you JDG haters don't believe in them. Well, when they win the Golden Road and Worlds, you're going to have to shut your fucking mouth then, bitch, because you're definitely wrong. Mate, that tweet after the fucking World Semi would have had like 700 replies. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been insane, wouldn't it? I know.
Like, you kill yourself, you fucking ginger. Like, it would have just been like, just so insane. Like, people would have just been like, just retire already. Get out of this space. Like, I don't know. Yeah, no, I feel that, but I don't know if you're even when you try to like bring that up, you're like, hey, by the way, he didn't win. They're like, shut up, Thorin, fucking hater. Like,
also, by the way, dude, there is actually a thing they say later in this thread that is mental. This is such a weird thing to say, because I agree with you, Dom. I even would have come, and the things I'm willing to admit if I'm the coach and the GM go like this. Like, oh, look, obviously this wasn't the original roster we started the season with last year. This year, even, we had budget limitations because of some of the rebuilds, but we're confident in the players we picked up. You know, we like how they play. They fit us. We've seen improvement, blah, blah, right? You do it like that. You'd sort of admit that, you know, you don't have the best players, but you did the best you could with them. They then do this weird egotistical thing in this thread, which makes no sense at all. You actually say apparently this. You say the only team that can challenge Fnatic in the market is G2 because of their trajectory. What are you talking about? Like, if that's what you're saying there, basically, is we could buy any other players. Well then, bro, what are you waiting for? Like, right now, I've made this point in past episodes. Dude, if you ever go and look on the Leaguepedia, like, what people's contract lengths are, you know you can make, like, all those super teams from, like, free agents, bro, like, irrelevant, upset. They're all there. They're all going to be available. Like, all these dudes are going to be free to come in the off-season. They're not even going to cost you a buyout. Like, if that's true, you're actually setting yourself up as the Fnatic GM for a hell of fall, because if you don't make mega upgrades at the end of this season and then have a mega team for next, well, what's your excuse? Because I sort of agree. Even though Fnatic, by the way, I've also heard they don't have anywhere close to the money of some of the other orgs. It's more like they could get it if it was a giant player, because you go to your investors and you say, you know, we need this much for this guy. So they could maybe do it if it had been in the past, people like Perks, etc. But they're clearly not spending mega bucks. But they are sort of right. In the mind of players, because the name Fnatic always seems to be in the finals, there's still a sort of player out there where if he can't join G2, he sort of does want to join Fnatic. You still do think like, hey, I've got a chance to go to Worlds, I'll be in the So I sort of agree with him, but what a weird statement, because in my opinion, if you say that statement, you have no excuse for not getting a mega roster. You've just said basically they're the only team that can out-compete you because they've got caps and more money. Like, well then make me a sick roster, mate. Go for it. What are you waiting for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I hate about this is that people will be like, what do you want him to say? You want him to say that he's poor? It's like, well, no, I mean, you just don't have to say anything here.
Of course not. Don't say anything.
Like, just don't say anything. Just be like, yep, like this is our roster. Like we believe in our players. Like there it is. Like that's all you need. I mean, a player like Carzzy, I think, would be banger in this roster.
It's a mega one,
I feel like he would be a player that would help them actually like win games. I feel like that's part of that wasn't that Carzzy's whole thing for the longest time. That's what everyone said about Carzzy, was like, oh, you know, he knows how to like shot call a game from ahead, and he's like,
and he supposedly works for Humanoid mega well. Wouldn't it be the dream match? Like they should want to play together, surely.
Yeah, they probably need some better vibes in that team anyway. I mean, the team looks like they look mega destroyed mentally. Just whenever they lose, it just looks like it's taking years off their life.
Right, wait there 1 sec. I'm just looking it up. Oh, bro, it's everyone. Think, Dom, right? When I did on my short side select that I do with Rich sometimes, there's going to be one coming out soon where we do our team of the season. And the reason it's insane, Dom, is I actually had 5 different teams represented in my team of the season, because I think that's how spread out the talent is, right? You know how many of my picks, by the way, will be available in this offseason? So, right, Irrelevant was my top laner. He's going to be available, by the way, right? You just said Carzzy, right? Are you ready for the support? You know Labrov, he's going to be available in this offseason, free agent. Like, bro, what do you want? Like, these players are just out there waiting to be picked up. And you know what? I don't know what Labrov's relationship with BDS is, but surely he wants to play with Humanoid and Carzzy and win the fucking LEC. Like, surely he doesn't want to just sign up for another season of BDS. Like, this should be the easiest deal of all time. That's why I actually think, like I say, if I were them, I think they're being too transparent in some ways by saying some of this shit. Like, I think you've set yourself up for a fall here, mate. I agree with you. You either don't address it or you do all those sports euphemisms, you know, where we can't, like, do expensive purchases every season. Sometimes we have to rebuild. Also, you could even lie, Dom. You could say some shit like, we were trying to see, you know, who works with Humanoid and Razork so we can then decide, you know, what direction. You could do a million euphemisms. Like, that's why I hate when people say that, Dom. You know, I'll give you the obvious example. You know when Super in Winter was like, we're the best bot lane in the world, right? You know, the same thing. If me and you make fun of him, they'll go, well, what do you want him to say? That he just sucks dick and is bad. Like, yeah, those are the only two options. It's like Monkey Island. Yep. And when he approaches the press, he only has two options. I'm the greatest ADC of all time, better than Viper and fucking Ruler, or I suck dick and I'm the worst. He couldn't say, you know, every other opinion in between. Like, I'm pretty good, but I'm not at their level, or I'm going to be at their level one day, or I hope to. But like, fucking hell, guys. Like, if you don't think people who are GMs and fucking coaches can get around saying what they want to say and make it sound good, you haven't ever watched sports. They're usually masters of it. Like, normally they use every euphemism under the sun. They never really say what they think. You never say what you, as they say it, you don't say the quiet part out loud. Like, actually, we're just like shit our luck and we can never compete with G2. You don't say that. Like, that almost is like they're saying what you don't want them to say. They're just saying it's impossible to beat G2. What?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, for some reason, like, people love when a player like Supa says that shit, or like there's at least a portion of the fan base. I mean, most people hate it, but it's just the Bad Lions fans are so loud that you know they talk over everyone. But like when if an Asian player ever said that, how far down their throat would people jump? Like, imagine if Tien was like, yeah, I just won like MVP of LPL. I think I'm the best jungler in the world right now. We're like, shut the fuck up, Tien. You think you're better than Canyon? Like,
exactly. Like,
you haven't had a good world championship since 2019, you fraud. Like, people would just go in on them. So it's just so funny to me that I hear those types of quotes, and it's like, I mean, I guess you don't need to like back it up. You can just say this shit, not put in like close to the effort to actually become as good as those guys, and then you know, in 2 years time, it's like, well, what's the worst that could happen? I guess I just wasn't as good as Deft.
By the way, there's also a thing. It turns out all that first part I was talking about was what Dardo said, and then this is where like Nightshare came in. Bro, there's a thing Nightshare says that actually drives me up the wall, because I want to put it to you. I did a whole rant about this on Summoning Insight. If anyone saw the episodes, you can go watch that. But basically, what I would put to you is this, Dom. They've actually just said out loud what I've known the whole time about practice in the West in general. And the only people I will exclude from that practice is, I would imagine like Team Liquid and LCS probably doesn't practice this way. Maybe like the G2 Super Team a few years ago didn't do this. But bro, it's where he says this part. It says, practice in Europe is very bad. The way the teams play in practice is nowhere near how you play on stage. Scrims in EU are just for fist fighting. Even Fnatic fighting too much. Now, the reason that's mental, Dom, is that's not even a new problem. I knew players, I told this on Summoning Insight, 20 years ago in Counter-Strike who did the same thing. When they played the scrim, they would play like super aggressive on CT side and do like crazy peeks down mid and just shoot the guy in the head or get killed. And if the coach or the IGL back then, in-game leader shot caller, turned to them and said, what are you doing? Like, that's not how we want to play. They'd go, oh, don't worry, bro. I wouldn't do that in the official game. I'm just fucking around in scrims. But here's the problem, Dom. You'll know this as a pro. How you play in practice will be how you end up playing in the official game. Like you're actually training your like instincts and decision making in the scrim. So if people really are doing that shit, which is why, by the way, those stories exist about like Bo winning every scrim by himself. If people really just play like lunatic solo queue players and smurf the scrim, but as a result there's no real game being played and not doing any of the protocols or discipline that you need to do as a pro player, then bro, it makes sense why this region is trash. Because no one's actually practicing. You know what you're doing then, Dom? You're actually trying ego to just beat the other team and show I'm better than you and have confidence. That's not practice. You know the whole point of practice, I always tell people this. You know, professional American football player and basketball players don't play. They don't have fun. They practice. It's work. You have to do like boring drills. You have to fucking run up and down. You're really tired. You have to do annoying defensive drills where the guy's just frustrating you, keep the ball off your time. That's because they're making it hard so that in the game it's easy. You've probably heard that great quote from combat sports about like boxing where they say when you bleed in the gym, they say when you sweat in the gym, you don't bleed in the fight. You put all your effort in the gym and to make it right. This is like, how are people in 2024? They did this in your era. How are people still just playing scrims like mad abusively in a way they're never going to play? Don't you find that alarming? These are the top teams in our region as well. This is crazy, mate.
Yeah, I mean, like the argument that people always use that I hate is people being like, well, what else are you going to do? If they make a mistake, like, are you supposed to not punish? If you don't punish their mistakes, then you can't play the game. It's like there's a million different ways that you can actually get better at the things that Fnatic needs to get better at. You don't even need to play the game to get good at the part of the game that Fnatic needs to get good at. They need to just figure out the decision making in these states that they're having time to analyze. It's not like when they have the Baron and Soul situation in that game one that it's like a very like second to second decision. You have literally 5 minutes of inaction before this where it's like, okay, how are we going to play that? Like, what are we going to play for? Soul or Baron? Okay, Baron, what are the conditions we have? Who's missing a flash? Are we turning? Are we finishing the Baron? You have all these decisions like available to be made 2-3 minutes in advance, and you just simply don't know what to do. So I don't even buy that that's actually an excuse as to why their macro is so bad. These are things that can be figured out outside of the game by just reviewing better regions. You could literally just review professional games, and they played 3 fucking games against G2 and got shit on in the same way. 3 different games against G2 on stage in finals right before this, and somehow none of that like transferred over at all. It just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. It's like, I could understand if this was the first time it ever happened, and it's like, shit, like normally we're winning all of our games in 20 minutes, but now we had some mid to late game situations. We haven't been great at those. You've had a whole year of mid to late game situations to break down for the entire year of LEC, and you still haven't figured it out. It's got to be bullshit.
Well, here's the thing, Dom. Right now, Fnatic is a mess. Their macro is as dirty as it comes. But you know what? If you yourself are a mess and are too dirty, then you need our other sponsor, Mando, which provides obviously all sorts of like bath care, underarm stuff, wipes. Because one of the things is, whether you're someone grinding away, playing loads of solo queue games, and you just want that one extra game, you don't want to leave the PC, one of the best things about Mando actually is, like, for example, the whole body wipe thing they have. That's actually really good if you just feel a bit sweaty under your arms, or like me, you're in 23 to 26 degree Celsius weather, you just wipe under your arms while you're playing. If I'm in the middle of a show, I only have 5 minutes to go and do something else. That's a good angle. Also, obviously one of the problems is, I'll just explain a very simple concept I like to explain to people, which is that there's a very unusual counterintuitive aspect of how your smell and your nose sense works, which is called your olfactory system. What people don't know is this. You think you smell a smell and your brain recognizes the smell. No, what you actually smell, it might sound bizarre, is changes in contrast between smells. So famously, if you've ever been in your room and you left a plate there from 2 days ago with some food on it, you won't know while you're in the room that smells actually. You'll just be like, well, it doesn't smell like anything to me. But if you go out for the afternoon and come back, you'll smell it the second you walk in the door. You'll go, what is that? Like, is that egg or something? What is it? What's that smell? And you'll find the old plate and go, oh, what the hell? Oh, I should have thrown this out. So it's the same way for you as a person, guys. Like if you're sat at your PC all day, sweating away, then actually you don't know that you stink. You actually think, oh, I'm all right. It's just you don't know that if you go outside and your girlfriend's there, your family's there, your friends are there, they're going to immediately go like, bro, clean it up, get your shit together. So one of the cool things about Mando is they have a process where what they do is, obviously to sweat is a totally natural human reaction. It's the ventilation system of your body when you overheat. The problem isn't that you sweat, it's that sweat smells really bad. It's called body odor for a reason. So the cool thing about Mando products actually is they control your body odor by like attacking the bacteria that feeds on the sweat and makes the smell, which is the body odor. So it's actually like a very wholesome approach to doing it. It's not full of all fucked up chemicals. So when you want to experience fresher underarms, a fresher package, and fresher feet, you'll never go back. So they have a special offer. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. You can see it on the screen. Use code BDLS at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Now, I've actually used like the underarm one. I actually find it very nice. I also like, by the way, it's got one of those like more masculine smells. It's not all like fruity or whatever the fuck. I quite like the soap for in the showers. I just find it's like a really nice proper bar of soap that lathers up in your hands and makes me feel like you only have to rub a few times. It gets me nice and clean. Like I say, the underarm wipes are really good if you're at your PC. Montiano likes the cream thingamajig that goes on your skin. I haven't used that one personally. Also, it's aluminium free, baking soda free, cruelty free, dye free, vegan, and if it was Fnatic, they'd be, I don't know, LEC finals free. So there you go. Thanks to Mando. As I say, use the discount code. You'll get hooked on my favourite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. Get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off the starter pack. Use the code BDLS at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. It's time to, they put this line, so I'll read it because it's hilarious. It's time to smell better naked. Your partner will thank you. You know what? You figure out whether that's the case or not. Okay, anyway, back into LEC. Because here's the thing I do want to ask is this, right? Before we do a little bit about Mad Lions, so maybe, I don't know, the death of BDS, I want to ask you this. I want us to contrast these two teams we just did, G2 and Fnatic, at Worlds, because these are our top seeds, Dom. These are the teams where, on paper, in past years, the analysis would always be this, wouldn't it? G2 is supposed to make top 8 at least, and then you depend what opponent you get. And Fnatic is probably supposed to be what they were last Worlds, like borderline to make top 8, but if they don't, as long as it's an LPL or LCK team, we might forgive it, right? Bro, I actually feel like both these teams, I hinted at it earlier, I could see a world where both these teams actually shit the bed in the Swiss system, mate. Like, for Fnatic, I'm not even trolling. There might be a world where all they can do is win a best of 1. I don't know if there's any Asian team they can beat in a best of 3, mate. I even think, I'm just going to say, I think TL will beat them in a best of 3. So, bro, there might be for real like 9, 10 teams that Fnatic can't even win in the best of 3s against. So, I don't know how they're going to get out of Swiss. And then for G2, it all depends for me how this meta switch happens. Like, by the way, I'll just throw this out there. Even though if you're a T1 fan, you're loving a world where it's going to be Orianna Azir. Bro, I don't really know that I want to see caps on Orianna Azir at Worlds. I kind of want him on all these picks he was playing earlier this year and having mad agency and able to do all sorts of crazy shit. Even on Ori and Sol, he was fucking sick. Like, what do you think of these two teams? What are your expectations? I'm a bit down on them at the moment, mate. I'm not usually like as hyped as I normally am.
I think that G2 has a better shot. I mean, Fnatic just has the same problems all the time, and I just don't think realistically you're going to stomp Asian teams hard enough early game consistently enough where the fact that you don't know when to take Baron, you don't know how to play around Sol, you have like no vision control, that this won't eventually just kill you in a series. So I think Fnatic is completely fucked. I think that, I don't even think it would be like a question. Like, I know you were like, oh, I think even TL like might beat them. Like, I think TL, like, it would be a massive upset if Fnatic beat TL. When odds come out on that, if it's anywhere close, I'm gonna fucking snap on TL for sure. Because I mean, look, they beat them in a best of 3. They 2-0'd them. when they played them at EWC. They 3-1 them at MSI, and now it looks like TL is getting better. Like when you watch TL play, you're like, oh, week to week, I can see some improvement. They're doing things better. And also, if TL really wanted to beat Fnatic, all they would have to do is just lane swap, because they understand how to lane swap just like G2 does. If you watch like the game 5, TL literally is one of the best lane swap teams right now, because they understand all the different iterations of a lane swap. Most people have a similar lane swap every single game. They're just like, we push the 4 waves, then we cancel our bases in the brush, then our top laner takes over top, our bot lane bases, they walk bot with the jungler, boom, our map is saved. That's how most teams lane swap. The way TL lane swaps is they understand who actually needs to be getting the farm and who could abuse the situation. TL just did the lane swap against FlyQuest in game number 5. And if you look at that iteration of the lane swap, that's one where instead of basing their AD carry and running bot, they kept their AD carry top the entire time and just had their top laner run bot with the support, and they just caught that wave. And what that did is allowed a Kai'Sa, an AD carry that's really oppressive versus Wukong pre-6, to just abuse him and freeze on him, and there was nothing that the Wukong could do. So when I see a team versus like Fnatic, I think every team that is going to play them internationally is just going to have the same mentality, which is like, we just make it a macro heavy game and Fnatic can't play. What are they going to do? You just make it a macro heavy game, lots of swaps, lots of just like rotations. Don't fight them straight on unless you have vision control or something like that. And Fnatic will just get bit in the ass by the fact that they haven't improved on any of these concepts the entire year. G2 I'm more hopeful for, because their mid to late game is actually good. And I think that that's enough to carry you versus, for example, like the worst Korean team that's going to be there, maybe like a 3 and 4 seed potentially.
So D plus or KT or something, yeah. Yeah.
If it's D plus or KT, I mean, I think D plus is a more egregious example of it. If D plus goes to those worlds, they're a team that is really bad mid to late game. I always called them Korean Fnatic. Like they look like Korean Fnatic to me, where it's like they have like the players that can get leads, and then it gets mid or late game, they just do something absolutely ridiculous and lose the game. Not on the same level as Fnatic, obviously. They're Korean version of Fnatic, so they are better. But I think G2 would be able to out macro them mid to late game. I think a team like LEC, they play really slow. Maybe that's an angle. Maybe Fnatic has stylistic mismatch there, because if they do get a lead, LNG is not normally a team that'll make risky plays to come back. They kind of are like do nothing and lose. They have that in them. But I will say, like, it should be completely doomed for Fnatic. But G2, I'm hyped on the fact that they have at least something going into Worlds. They at least figured out one thing, which is like how to do lane swaps, how to understand tempo. They do it better than anyone in Europe. And there's seeds around the world. Like I'd say outside of TL and sometimes FlyQuest, no team in NA understands that. And then outside of like the top 6 teams from Asia, the other 2 don't understand at the same level as G2. So that's an angle for G2 to be good. And then, you know, if they're able to improve their early game, who knows what they could do. If they were able to improve their early game, like a top 4 would not be a crazy thing in this current landscape. The problem is their early game has been so consistently bad, it just feels like that won't happen, especially when you're not boot camping in Korea, you're not getting that many scrims versus Asian teams. You're just going to kind of show up in this forum and hope that you win.
Right, obviously, Mad Lions is the other team going. I will point out, actually, I noticed, I can't remember who made this point, but they are right. You know, everyone in LEC got completely tricked by the format, which is everyone kept thinking it was championship points, which it never ever was. That was just to get you to the finals. In the finals, it's just top 3 teams go from Europe. So that's why when people kept going, but wait, if BDS lose to G, no, they would be 4th, so they're out. So all you needed to know was in the finals, it was just the order that you finish in, 1, 2, 3, and they finished G2 for Mad Lions, right? So Mad Lions is the 3rd team that goes. I will say, unlike past episodes, as soon as Mad Lions actually beat G2 in a best of 5, I no longer really was that mad about that whole thing of like, but why are they here? And the win rate was shit, and plus Carmine Corp beat them. Like, at that point, you know what? You did just beat G2 in a best of 5. Like, if you can do that, I don't hate, like, you're not my favourite team to go, but I don't hate it. You've at least done something epic, something momentous. And also, if you look at their team, with all the triple flexes and all those crazy fucking draft angles, that's potentially something for the BO1s. You can catch someone off with that. You can maybe trick a team that thinks they can handle it. A lot of people have done that classically, like against Adam with the Gods, Champions, etc. I could see a world where Merwin could get a BO1 where he gets an interesting pick. But so what are your expectations for Mad Lions? What do you think's plausible? And I know you were one of the people who pointed out many times the win rate. Do you think, is the win rate a problem for you? Does that make you think that like a team this bad shouldn't go? Is what they did in the last few weeks enough to redeem them? Where are you at on Mad Lions?
I think that the way that they played in season finals looked like they were at least a respectable team, which they didn't look like for the majority of the year. I do have a problem with them just going based off the like. I just really hate how weighted winter and spring is, because if you think about that period, that's like a 3-month period, and that is where like you get the majority of your championship points.
Yeah.
So I really like, and also I think the lower placings shouldn't count for like anything. Like for example, if you get last place in playoffs in LPL, you get 0 points. Like you did not do any like. You get 0. You get the same as if you didn't even make playoffs. You get literally 0 points. Whereas if you just make top 8, you're getting like 35, 40 points. Right. Like that is actually pretty significant when in the grand scheme of things, percentage wise, when you look at the championship points. So I had a problem there. And what I say is, imagine how Mad Lions fans would have reacted if they had the same season as BDS, where it's like third place. That's third place. Point.
Yeah.
Then they just lose like one best of 5 to like a team that should be better than them. And in this situation, like BDS would have won like that, just like one ridiculous.
I mean, put it this way, we're not being haters.
It would be fucked.
Even though Mad Lions made a final and beat G2 in this season 5, the third best team of the year was BDS, quite clearly from the results. Like that's just what the line says. I mean, by the way, I will say as an aside, unfortunately, that Adam Bench and Winter's aged very poorly now. Like if you could think backstrike, he probably wouldn't do that now. You know what I mean, mate? You just discipline in between the splits. But you couldn't have known this would happen to me. No, I know what you mean. I agree. If Mad Lions was in the BDS spot, they would just say, this format is broken, change it so that our team would be the third team, which I don't think is even an unreasonable thing to say. That would be fair.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's my whole point, is I think that would be reasonable. But it's like now because Mad Lions benefited from it, it's like, eat it, haters. Like 40% win rate, and we're fucking going to like Worlds. It's like, okay, man, but I just think that there's just an issue with that.
Put it this way, here's why I know you're right. Because even though I said that when I saw them beat G2 in the best of 5, that was enough. Well, the point is, Dom, they shouldn't even have been at the season finals. So if like, I shouldn't ever have been able to see them do that. So look, they did do it because they were allowed the chance. But also, I have to say this as well. I can't know Carmine Corp couldn't have done that. They never got a chance to. We're not giving everyone an equal chance. So I sort of agree.
But just look at this. Just look at how Mad Lions played versus G2. Because think about what G2 did with their time. They won summer, and they think like, okay, we're going to take our break now because we're not going to take a break before Worlds. Worlds is pretty early this year, right? It starts September 25th. So their mentality, the G2 mentality, is we have our our summer finals. Then we have like a 1-week break before we go into like our summer season. They're probably going to take some time off because they think that like the first round should be easy. They don't have to play like in the later parts of season finals until like 4 weeks after that because the format's so slow. And they probably think they're beating Mad Lions no matter what. I would bet that while Mad Lions was scrimming, while they were doing that Madrid boot camp, because they were out, like they were out super early in playoffs, right? So they had time to take their break, then gear up. G2's already qualified for Worlds, and G2 takes their break. Then they like play against Mad Lions. They play a best of 5, like where the 5th game like should have been won, but they did that weird Aurelia pick, and then they like messed up one team fight, and Caps had his worst game that he's had. And then when you look at how G2 played against them this last weekend, was that not a completely different version of G2? Was this not a way more like systematic beating than anything we saw? Like the first one, they just got dirty with Mad Lions. This one, they're like, oh, so all we have to do is like perma lane swap on you, and there's nothing you can do because you're just not smart enough to figure it out. And they just did that over and over and over again, and it literally felt like, okay, they lost one random Gwen game. Same thing against Fnatic, by the way. You just lose one random Gwen jungle game, and then when you just start playing standard, you just beat them every single time because they can't follow this one strategy that you do literally every fucking game. Didn't matter for Scowie's like solo killing Caps. None of it even mattered. The games were just completely unplayable for Mad Lions because they didn't understand this. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that there's something to be said for having a team that's already pre-qualified to Worlds before the season finals, having to play this match against Mad Lions. You saw a different version of G2 in that best of 5. So I would be down with like a best of, like if the best of 5 was a qualifier for both, then it's way more legit. But like the fact that it's one where one team's already qualified, and G2 has proven that they don't need to win all the time. Like they can get it like if they get it into gear, they just fucking end up winning no matter
I mean, basically what you're arguing for, this would actually fix the whole thing, Dom, is if a team like G2 can already be qualified, don't have them play, have a gauntlet and have Carmine Corp and BDS and all them play Mad Lions, and then whoever wins. Yeah, they get the spots. I know what you mean.
I want the teams to fight for the spot between each other. I don't want them to fight against a team that's already pre-qualified. I think that's way different.
Yeah.
I want to, like, what I want to, all I need for this to be super legit for me, I just need to see a Mad Lions versus BDS match. That's
yeah.
BDS, Mad Lions, whoever wins, they're the third seed.
Yes. Because the other thing is, when I look at Mad Lions, and imagine, look, I spun the positive side there of like, what if Merwin gets his picks? What if they triple flex? But here's one area I think Mad Lions is doomed, bro. Mate. If there's one thing you can't hate on with the Asian teams, it's the motherfucking mid laners, bro. Like, you might not think D+ is that good. Showmaker is really good. You might think if KT go there, KT are a meme. BDD is not a meme. How the fuck is Frescovi going to get anything done, mate? He is going to get giga clapped.
I mean, Faker's probably the worst laning mid laner.
Yeah, it's not even unfair.
Like, assuming that he ends up going. Like,
think about it. This is going to be Frescovi against like Zhao, Scout, Knight, fucking Cream, Faker, pick BDD or Showmaker. The joke is, even Zika's going to get this guy. Like, mate, there's no chance.
Shit on him.
How are you going to get it? Exactly, there's no chance. Like, this mid lane, it's going to be a gap. It's going to be a gap, bro.
The thing about Mad Lions is I feel like they are good at punching up and playing versus teams that are better than them. But if you look at how they play against teams that are around like their skill level, or not even like just their skill level worse than them, they do pretty poorly against bad teams. So this play-in could be actually really fucking scary for them, because some of these teams are not going to be good teams and they're going to have the expectations and everything. And they obviously, there's going to be narratives that go into it as well, that Mad Lions always does poorly at Worlds, that they've lost in play-ins before. They're the only European team to ever lose in play-ins as well. So it's pretty rough when it comes to like how everything shakes out for them, because I feel like they're the team that just wants to play against a team that's massive favorites, and they just get to do the underdog role and, you know, hit them with some weird stuff.
No, I'm with you. That's why I'm just so scared in general for them. I actually think Europe's in such a bad spot for this world. It's like, this could be one of the worst ones ever. Basically, you have to just hope G2 just plays like they did at MSI. If they don't, we're in deep shit, mate.
I mean, the last one was one of the worst ones ever. I mean, you can't really do much worse than that. No one made it out of Swiss, right? So it could just be the run back. Just not make. I mean, it could just be a more embarrassing way of losing, I guess. But look, NA could do the same. So we'll see.
Even though they're not going, I actually think, especially in the context of what we just talked, we have to also finally just talk a little bit about BDS. Like, BDS, sadly, look, I could just do all the things I'm going to do on Twitter, don't worry. Which is like, guess what, Nuke? Don't worry, I'm going to be coming right up your arsehole, metaphorically, mate. You were chatting shit about how you were going to win, and then you were going to come back and tweet at me. So, good luck with that. You saw that worked out for Noah, by the way. Adam, that little bitch, has me in that mode where you can't contact the people, because you know what? It's weird, Dom. You know, everyone's told me specifically for the last 5 years, if you block someone, you're a mentally weak bitch who admits they're right and can't handle their arguments. Well, then what would it say if Adam had me blocked because I tweeted at him? That would be fucking wild, wouldn't it? That would almost be like getting a leak and then not even knowing about it and then lying and saying Monty's wrong. But anyway, that's a separate thing. So the point is, put all that to one side. I actually do think this is so fucking sad for BDS. One, like I just said, a whole bunch of their players, by the way, are up for free agency this offseason. So I don't know if BDS is going to sign them. I don't know if they're going to go to better teams. There's a world where some of their players are good. I don't even know if we see this BDS core again. And the sad thing is, if you look at the 2 years they've played with Crowley last year and then with Ice this year, bro, this is just a good team. Like, you know what? They have plenty of flaws and they have individual flaws. But I actually did always appreciate the way as a team they played, the way they looked like they were coached, the way some of the players synced up together. I actually think they were one of those teams that is that like dreaded cliche of more than the sum of their parts. I don't think this is like some dope-ass roster either. I think this is like the 4th or 5th best roster in the LEC. But the amount of times they really were challenging to go to the finals, to maybe even an outside chance be a champion. Like, in a way, it is sad to me they don't go to Worlds. Like, I did think this was a good team. What are your thoughts on BDS?
I just feel like you have to change something with the team, because when you look at the last 2 years, they have 1 year where they play with Crowdy. He's one of the best players on the team. He's, by the way, like, he's just the MVP of spring. If they end up winning in spring and they don't get a first swap, he's literally just the MVP of that split. Obviously, they didn't do one last year, but like, he would be the most valuable player in that circumstance. And then Ice was extremely good the entire year. So you have 280 carries that played extremely well for 2 years domestically in the LEC, and the team gets 4th place both times. So it has to be in other places. And there is definitely a huge choke factor when it comes to this team as well. Yep. You see the way they broke down in that game 5. You don't just get reverse swept 3 times by accident. You know, the same exact roster. Yes. I could see once, I could see twice. Like, It's not always a choke if you get reverse swept. Sometimes you get reverse swept by a better team and they figure something out. But the way that they get reverse swept is my problem. Like that game 5, as soon as they didn't fight the Drake in the game 4 that they played versus G2, that game 5, you just knew they were 100% going to lose. I had people in a call with me talk about as soon as things started going bad in game 3, they're like, yeah, it's a reverse sweep, 100% G2 win. So people were literally saying, like Gilly's like, yeah, just bet on reverse sweep. It's like fucking 5 odds. Like 3 minutes into game 2. I mean, or game 3 rather. It just, you could see the choke that they have. You could see that they're just going to end up doing the same bullshit they always do. And I don't know. And they're a tough team. Also, when you look at the way they started drafting in this series, it was so like mental to me. There's picks that are up. They're literally, so what G2 is doing is they're picking Nautilus, which is like one of the weaker supports right now. Like if you think about prios, it's like Rel is super high prio, Leona is super high prio. People are prioing like Kalista Renata if it's good. People are prioing like Alistar into Rel if that's up. Braum into
maybe
like
Rakan,
into
there's loads, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that people are willing to pick. And G2 is so cynical that they're like, we ban Braum and we ban Rel and we first pick Nautilus. And we know that Lebrov is too insecure to actually just pick Leona and just shit on us because like even though it's a straight up counter matchup,
obvious, yeah.
As we've seen before, they think, oh, let's just go Rakan into Nautilus. They just self counter themselves. They self counter in game 5 in like multiple different roles. It's so fucked up.
Right, here's the problem, Dom, is first of all, I don't actually know if they're going to have these players even in the next season. Like, we'll have to see. I think some of them might get picked off. My problem with their team goes like this. The only players I would 100% keep is just the bot lane. I think the bot lane is just pretty good. I think they're just both good. They can be really good. I think they do their job. The other 3 players, and the obvious problem is they're the French players, they all have a reason you could kick them. Like, here's the funny thing. Out of Adam, Shio, and Nuke, the one who plays the best, the most consistently, is Nuke. But I'll tell you the obvious problem he has, Dom. Bro, this guy just can't ever win against Humanoid and fucking Caps. Like, he has a mental block. He even plays differently against each of them. Like, against Humanoid, he sometimes tries to, like, fucking 1v1 him, which is like, what? And then against Caps, he just straight up, like, he just fucking bends over and pulls his pants down, mate. He just knows it's over. So Nuke, it's good enough to be, like, a third-place team, but he is, like, you're hitting a ceiling with him. You're never getting the, like, super high performance that people want. Even from, by the way, I even think of people who aren't even as good mid laners, like Jackie's. Mate, Jackie's will have a game where he'll just carry on a strong pick and just shit on even a Caps. Like, that can happen. Then the other two, Shio is one of the most mentally weak players I've seen in the LEC, bro. This guy, the second he cracks, he's just done. He's just done, so like, you need to get the straight jacket. And then Adam, it's so mad that at the beginning of this year, Adam looked really good and looked like he was about to take that next step up. Because, mate, if you even go to the summer, in the summer they were having some games. Like, I remember he had a Cassiopeia game that was pretty fire. He's had a few games that were good, but even his meta champions fell off. And by the end of this year, I feel like he's never looked worse, mate. I saw this guy just going into side lanes and getting killed like a moron, just over and over again. And times where he just wouldn't pick the tank. He just wouldn't do it. Like, I think, again, I don't know. It doesn't have to be all of them, but mate, so someone, at least one of these players has to be caught, maybe even 2 for me. Like, I feel like the pieces are there, the coaching stuff's there to be on a top team, but someone has to make a hard decision. Which French player are you cutting? Which would you pick out the 3?
I think it depends on what your options are, really. I think Sheo is probably the most replaceable in my mind. Like, he seems the most replaceable. I think the problem is, it's like, sure, like, I agree that Nuck is probably just like 3rd, 4th best mid laner in Europe pretty consistently. Who are you going to get over Nuck? Like, there's just not going to be an option for you to get anyone better than him. I think top lane, I'll probably go in order. I would say cut Sheo first, 2nd, Adam, 3rd, Nuck. That would be my priority.
So we're gonna kill Sheo, fuck Adam, and marry Nuck. Okay, there we go. We did it right. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was setting it up for.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. By the way, I do know what you mean as well. Like, I actually do think Nuke's a good player. His problem is just the reason why you have to make a player change somewhere on the team is, by the way, you can still keep him as mid. We just better get some dope-ass top laner. Like, let's get a top lane carry then. Let's get someone who can get the fucking work. Yeah. If you do that, then we can keep Nuke. Yeah, I agree. Or if you get a mega jungler. By the way, here's the obvious angle that would be a dream if you could. Probably can't at this point. point in time, sadly. I imagine he's going to stay in NA and get the green card. Bro, imagine if you could bring like Inspired into this team. He'd fucking whip him into shape immediately. Immediately your solo lanes will be twice as good, I'm telling you right now. So, no, I agree with that. I think of the three, I'd leave Luke last as well. I think that's fair. He also did have a pretty good season, by the way. He has a pretty good season all in all.
I feel like Inspired is actually like maybe the best plug-and-play player in
he
the
could
West.
fix so many teams in LEC, couldn't he? Yeah.
He could fix every team. I mean, look, like the FlyQuest team is not even a good team. And like just having a jungler that knows what the fuck is going on all the time is such a benefit.
Yes.
In every situation. Like the only player that I could argue would be more valuable just 1-to-1 than Inspired would be Caps, if Caps is in like insane form. The thing about Caps is like he hasn't had to play with bad teams.
That's
recently.
true.
I don't know like how well he would play if like his teammates were actually just like all terrible. Yes. You know, and like he had to micromanage everyone. Yes. I think it's probably harder to do that from mid than it is from jungle anyway. So I don't know. That would be an insane lineup. If they
I will say, by the way,
Inspired on this team, it'd be perfect.
That is the one thing that does trigger me a little bit about the Caps fawning, right? Which is, as you saw, even from those Fnatic GMs and coaches, where they're just doing that thing. He's just unbeatable. If you have Fnatic, Caps, you just win. Like, no one could beat him. You know what, bro? Can we stop giving him stacked all LEC lineups? Like, in that case, can you show me that? Can you give me, Dom, the equivalent of giving Caps Morgan, Willa, and Vista and telling him to go to LCK finals and then fucking like, third place and then fucking world's top 8. Like, I've never seen Caps do that, bro. Like, by the way, if you want him as the best mid laner on the best team, yeah, he's probably the best you've ever seen in Europe. But you are right. He's almost never been on a bad team. Like, bro, his worst lineup ever was probably still like the top 3 lineup in LEC. You know what I mean?
Yeah, easy. For sure. For sure. I mean, I would say, like, I still think he's the best Western player, but he just gets like a ridiculous pass for like everything. I mean, like, he got solo killed by Friscawi. Like,
yep.
In a pretty like ugly way too, where it's like, damn, bro.
No,
like,
just that's the ultimate pass. You're right. He's got the pass.
He's got the pass to do whatever the fuck he wants. Like, he could just run it down and somehow like anyone else would get flamed. But I mean, he is just the best like Western player. I just feel like narratives end up carrying teams like way.
Of course.
Like narratives just carry way too much weight in this community. Like people just they get on one train of thought and then it's just, you know, it's like Caps is the best Western player. Everyone agrees with that, and it's like, and that also means that he can never play bad. Like, well, I agreed with the first part of it.
Because, by the way, same concept, right? Think about the people they're comparing with Caps, right? So everyone's going to tell me, Dom, this is actually a real retcon, and it really triggers me. They do a retcon about Perks now, Dom, which goes, he was never on Caps's level. He was always a fraud, and he finally got exposed. So I'll do the same logic, Dom. Here's what I need. I need Caps to go to NA and play with Fudge, Blabber, Sven, and Vulcan. And I want to see him be Caps. Just go do it, bro. Just be Caps. Because what we're pretending now is this isn't a team game with like synergies, shot calling, draft priority. We're pretending this is just a one-on-one plug-and-play game where you drop any great player into a team and they just perform their best. So here's the thing. By the way, there's a totally logical reason. It's even what fucking Nightshare said. Obviously, part of the reason Caps never has bad teammates is people want to play with Caps. That's true. That's a good factor. I'd even say that's pretty good. But I'm just saying I've never seen it done. Like, mate, even Faker's carried bad teams. The Caps has just bizarrely never ever been in that spot. He actually has had like a silver fucking platter. That's just been the silver spoon in his mouth the whole career. He actually is somewhat like Reckless in that degree. They just have all the best teammates all the time. So even their bad splits are still pretty good, you know. Because don't you think that's a part people underestimate? It's like, certainly, some of these players I'm referencing, Perks, upsets, have played bad in splits, but it's so different when you also have bad teammates, right? Or a fundamentally broken team. Like, we don't really know what Caps would do in a broken team, you know? No one knows.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree.